2, 1, go.
Papa, what war were you in?
I was in the Vietnam War.
Did you enlist? Did you enlist into the war, or did you get drafted?
No, I was drafted in the end of 1966.
How old were you?
I had just turned 20.
What branch of the military were you in?
I was in the United States Army.
How long were you in Vietnam?
One tour. I actually served a little bit less than a year. I was there for most of 1968.
What part of Vietnam were you in?
I was all over. I was with the 9th Infantry Division, so I was in a place called Long Ton at a camp called Bearcat, which basically was a very crude based camp. I was with an assault helicopter unit out of there. And from there I went down a little bit to the southern part in a place called Dong Tam, which was in the Mekong Delta. I was in the Mekong Delta, but only for about a few weeks. So I spent most of mine right in the middle of the country.
Were you in any gunfights?
Yes.
Did you ever get shot at?
Yes.
What happened?
Well, we would go out on search and destroy missions. Basically, we would leave base camp looking for a fight to search and destroy, basically. A couple times I was on guard duty, and we had a real crude base camp in the jungle, and we would have barbed wire set up. And with the barbed wire, we would attach cans, beer and Coke cans, and we'd have flares. And at nighttime, especially during the Tet Offensive, which took place in 1968, they would attack our camp and they would try to crawl up and get close to us. And we were working 2 men to a bunker on guard duty. And when the flares would trip, we could actually see them running around, and they would be maybe 100 feet from us. And we would open up fire. We would have M60, M50 machine guns in addition to our M16 rifles. And they would shoot at us, and we would shoot at them. And in the morning, we would go out there, and there would be a body count where we'd find dead people after engaging in that firefight. And a couple times when I was out, one time I remember moving out with the unit, and we were shot at. They had snipers shoot at us, and mostly it was harassment. And I remember laying on the ground, not moving, thinking, the sniper in the trees would get a shot at us, and we were pretty nervous about that. We probably lay there maybe 2, 3, 4 minutes until the lieutenant told us to move, and those 2 or 3 minutes seemed like about an hour at a time, but it was only a couple minutes, I'm sure.
What were the conditions like over there?
Well, where I was pretty crude. I never had any running water. I never had any electricity at all. We had no restrooms. It was very crude. For us to go to the potty, we had barrels we shot holes in and buried the barrels in the ground. And they were like barrels for gasoline, and we would just shoot holes in them when they were empty and put them in the ground, and that's where we would all go to the bathroom. And if we had to do something else, we had wooden boards with barrels under them where we would sit down and go to the bathroom there. It was pretty crude, and the only electricity we had was generators, and we didn't always have enough gasoline to run the generators, so it was pretty crude conditions.
Was it hot?
Extremely hot. You haven't seen a hot day around here like in Vietnam. It could be seemed like 95 and 100 every day. And then we would have storms in the afternoon, and it would cool off just temporarily, but you would just see steam come out of the jungle when that happened. And we'd usually run out there and try to shower a little bit because the rain was really coming down pretty hard. So it was an opportunity to get a little bit clean at that time.
What did you eat in Vietnam?
Well, they would make us some pretty decent meals while we were there, and we had something at the time called sea rations, which were cans of food and little cans of chicken and pork, and they were like vacuum packed. They were just called sea rations. We would eat them all the time when we were out on a mission, but we were in base camp. We'd have a hot meal probably 4 or 5 times a week, which was nice.
What was your job over there?
my job was, they called it 11 Bravo, which was an infantryman. I went over there under that, but I got lucky and served sometime in a support capacity. But I was kind of back and forth out of the base camp.
Did you ever have to shoot at anybody?
Yes, I did. I shot at people, like I said earlier, when we had the barbed wire that we set out, the trip flares, and we shot a lot. I mean, when in doubt, we would just pull the trigger. Everybody was pretty scared. We were all young. While I was in Vietnam, I was 21. While there, actually, I had my 22nd birthday quietly while I was in Vietnam.
Was that like the scariest moment there? Like the one where you got shot at?
Well, yeah, there were a lot of scary moments. I certainly was up there. We would be mortared and rocketed, and we would be awakened in the night. We'd have to crawl out or run out, and we had these like little tunnels that we had put metal over. It was like a trench, maybe 4 or 5 foot deep, and we put these metal barriers over, and then we cover the barriers with sandbags. And we get mortared and rocketed a lot of nights. I mean, 4 or 5 nights a week this would happen. It was frequent. And we'd run in there. And it was kind of scary because we could hear the bombs going off. And we could hear the shrapnel hitting the sandbags while we were inside. And those guys that didn't make it inside a lot of times were injured and took shrapnel in their legs or arms and chest. And sometimes some people got hurt pretty bad and in fact got killed from the shrapnel from the mortars and rockets fired at us by the North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong.
Did you ever receive any medals?
Yes, I received a lot of the standard medals for the basic campaigns that we had. There was a couple medals for serving in Vietnam. There was a medal for being with the 9th Infantry Division. I certainly wasn't a hero. I didn't get any heroic medals, quite honestly, but I was honored to serve my country when country called.
What was it like when you came back from Vietnam to the United States?
Very difficult for me. I was there during probably the most difficult year of the war. The Tet Offensive took place in 1968. The United States, it was a very controversial war. There were a lot of protests and things going on in the country that I wasn't aware of since I was out of the country. During 1968, in April of 1968, Martin Luther King was assassinated. There were a lot of riots as a result of that. In June of 1968, Robert Kennedy was assassinated. He was the Democratic nominee. He had just won the California primary when a man named Saran had shot and killed him. But during this time, there were tremendous protests in the country. And a lot of it I wasn't aware of being away. But I do recall returning back to the United States. I got on a plane, and they just took my rifle from me, my bayonet, my ammunition. And I got on a plane. I landed in California, where they gave us a new uniform and a nice class uniform and all the ribbons that we had earned. And when I departed, I had to catch a plane back to the D.C. area, which is where I'm from. And the people were protesting the war outside the gates of the military complex there in Oakland, San Francisco area. And they were calling us names and throwing bottles at us and rocks and calling us baby killers and a lot of stuff, which really confused me and a lot of the younger guys there, because even upon my return, I was only 22 years old, which was pretty young. So that was kind of shocking because I had not seen anything like that until that time.
We're done, I think.
Okay. Any more questions?
No.
Well, thank you all for the interview, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you.